Hey guys, welcome back. We have another Charizard dilemma here. This time involving Charizard, Logan Paul, and a grading company. It's like all the sketchy stories combined into one. And we're going to get into how all of it seems very shady. All the details haven't been released, but many folks have been digging, finding a lot of information that makes it very likely that the Charizard that Gary sold Logan Paul is now crossed over to a BGS 10. And we'll get into why that probably shouldn't have happened. It could be that some favors were done for advertising, in exchange for advertising. And looking a lot like a BGS trying to outdo CGC for sketchiest grading company in town. It seems like they all have their own little mishaps and stories. Here we got a nice little quickie shop of the Charizard that is one and the same. So I saw this on Facebook first of all, and this is a side-by-side comparison thanks to BGS releasing the image of the Charizard that belongs to Logan. On the left side there you have the one that Gary sold Logan in the famous video, and then the one on the right is the one that he was wearing around his neck. You can see here that the hollow pattern is identical on them. This is something that doesn't occur. You're not just going to find two with all of these hollow markings in exactly the same spot, especially not on two of the same card in the same condition, or what looks to be in the same condition. You can do another slight analysis. It's a little bit hard where it needs to be a perfectly straight on image to be able to digitally measure the centering. You could identify the border as the same card as well. Here the lighting is different, so they look like the color is a little bit different, but that's just the camera and or lighting that was used. Not to say that this can't happen, but it is almost impossible for this to happen. Apparently, if two hollows are next to each other on the same sheet, which two Charizards would not be, they can have similar positions on these, but other than that, not something that's just going to accidentally happen. So here we got the two independent images there. Now, interesting enough, we have a juicy thread going on E4, the forums here. It looks like Pichu Fan, shout out to him. He's done a ton of digging and investigating on this, making my life a whole lot easier for this video. And we'll just read through what he has for us. Super incredible that he came up with this, all this information as quickly as he did, and the others that contributed to the thread. Thanks for that. So here, Pichu Fan says, this is a bit of an interesting situation. BGS have tweeted a high-res image of the pristine Charizard Logan Paul was wearing around his neck during the fight. Based on the hollow foil pattern, this is almost a perfect match with a PSA 10 copy Gary sold to Logan back in October last year. And then there's a link to that video. I'm sure it's still available. Things now get a bit interesting though, because in January 2020, there was a video uploaded to Leonhardt's channel featuring Gary and this PSA 10 Charizard. The purpose of the video was to hopefully cross some PSA 10 cards over to Beckett 10 grades. Here's a segment about the very same PSA 10 Charizard Logan Paul bought from Gary. So the cert number on the top of the card is making this incredibly easy to trace when you look back at all these projects that Gary has done with creators. You can see that same Charizard that Logan bought was one of the Charizards that him and Leonhardt brought into Beckett to try and cross grade into a 10. None of which successfully did so. I remember watching this back when it came out. It wasn't that long ago. So here we go. It failed to meet the minimum grade to cross over to a BGS 10. And in Leon's own words, we were not going to change them to a Beckett case unless they came back pristine. And here's the actual screenshot of the Logan Paul card. You can see that it did not meet the criteria, that there were flaws on both top corners and the top edge. And now Pichu Fan says, I don't have much of an opinion on this other than to say that if this is the same card, which I believe it is, I feel quite sorry for Gary for having tried and failed to cross over to a BGS pristine grade already. Does this put into question BGS grading standards, or were they simply too harsh on the card when Gary tried to cross it in the first place? For the record, this isn't my discovery and something a few of us have been talking about on a Pokemon Discord server for most of the day. So I'm assuming that's the E4 Discord server. I'm not sure who else was talking about it, but everything's well documented in this thread here. So now the thing is, now you have to question, is the consistency of BGS just not good on something that should be this important? Or are they doing Logan Paul a favor because they'll know that he's going to flaunt that card? Is it free advertising, sort of the same way CGC was grading stolen cards? And I call them stolen cards because they were stolen. It's not inadvertent pre-release. If the card is stolen and Pokemon wants it back, if someone takes it from the factory or whatever and we're not supposed to, stolen. This is a whole different level of potentially sketchy, because if they're just giving out favors to influencers or somebody that's gonna show off the card, and if there's that much of a value difference in it, we'll talk a little bit about that later. Should they really be doing that? Probably not. It's and then I don't know what kind of regulations there are in terms of that. If you could just say maybe somebody else graded it and they thought it was worthy, but it's kind of hard to believe that all of a sudden it's a 10 now that Logan has it. So here we go. We have a Beckett tweet to look at here. It says, here's a better look at the pristine 1999 base first edition Charizard Hollow R that Logan Paul wore to the ring last night. For the record, this is a Pop 3 on BGS Pop Report. The hobby collector. Yeah. So, cool. Cool that they get to share it. That's advertising for them. I mean, it's advertising in general because it's in a Beckett case. And now the consensus, at least between Logan and Gary, is that BGS 10s are far superior. And there's only 3 of them, although this was a PSA 10. And if it failed to get a BGS 10, like at that point, is it worth more? Are we going to call it worth more? I don't know. It's like a lot of things in life, I guess. If you want to make it exclusive and valuable, then yeah, you can. If you want to just throw a number onto it. So here we go. Here's some dates for reference in case anyone needs them. Someone was asking, EV Team was asking about the BGS Pop Report for 3. So Pichu Fan has all the dates here. Logan's video was published on 14th October 2020, and from BGS's card lookup, the card was graded with BGS on the 7th of October. However, from Gary's Instagram feed, Logan was at Gary's house a couple of weeks earlier on the 24th of September, which, based on similar content in Logan's video, is where the sale occurred. This video actually focuses on Gary saying that he never saw one of his BGS copies even for $300,000, to which he then acquires the PSA 10 copy for $150,000. That's tonguing. Logan purchases that PSA 10 copy for $150,000. It also places emphasis on BGS 10 being a better grade than PSA 10, which is, I mean, you're going to play into something's more valuable if you have it. Typically how it goes. The chance of the holofoil pattern lining up so well on 2 separate cards is very rare and tends to only happen on cards positioned next to one another on the same sheet, like I was saying earlier, which isn't the case with this Charizard. For Logan to accidentally stumble upon 2 different Charizard cards with such similar holofoil patterns is incredibly unlikely. I completely agree with that. So here we go. We have some more documentation to take a look at here. So we have Logan's video was released on the 14th of October, but towards the end of the video, it shows them playing Barbie Dreamhouse as a way of making Gary feel less bad about selling the card. Gary shared a picture of the event on Instagram on the 24th of September. We got some serious detective work going on here. And then, so the Real King Pokemon tweet says, Logan Paul popped over to play some Barbie Dreamhouse. Good times. Besides a little playing, we also discussed our charity for autism, which would be kicking off soon with an incredible announcement. Of course, Logan threw in a little fun video you all see soon on his channel, but this was all about fun and charity. And at the risk of hurting Logan's rep, he is an amazing, kind person with a giant heart. God bless my true friend. So they're friends. It's hard to believe that Gary doesn't know exactly what was going on the entire time, but at the same time, he obviously can't talk about that right now, because if it's going to spoil something, that I'm sure Logan's going to come out with some kind of video or something discussing the whole thing, and or the process of going in and getting it graded. And then Pichu says here, it's without a doubt the same card in my mind. I agree. So Beckett is not exactly doesn't exactly have the cleanest past in terms of scandals. I guess none of the grading companies do. When you're dealing with that much money and the influence over making something worth way more money, there's bound to be some kind of corruption. So here we have an article on blowout cards about basically a prior employee who all of a sudden had this magical ability to grade way more black labels than anyone in existence, like 10x basically. And they have some records of that. We're not going to get into it too much, but just know that sketchy stuff like this can happen. I personally don't grade cards at all. I break them out sometimes if they're a good price, rather than buying a raw card. If I can get a PSA 8 or something, then I'd rather have that and crack it out. It's just, I don't know. It's a preference thing. The cases don't add any extra protection. You got sketchy stuff like this going on. Though the only way the grading cards make sense, in my opinion, is if you're going to sell them. If you can grade something and turn it into a more valuable card because someone is under the impression that plastic case on it, which is pretty meaningless, the opinion of someone that's just putting cards in plastic cases all day, then that's on you. Don't grade cards if you're just looking for protection, because it doesn't prevent any damage from moisture, UV, or anything like that. So it's basically just a really expensive top loader. Here we go. I added a comment from PFM here, mostly for the last little bit here. I thought this was really funny. Shout out to him. I love this quote down on the bottom here. Where it really gets absurd is when you realize people are adding a 6-figure premium on what is effectively the opinion of BGS. This is despite the fact that BGS literally values their own opinion at $250. Haha. That's probably the best thing I've read all day. So here we go. Now, BGS getting real wild. Pokemon fans and collectors erupted when they noticed Logan Paul's BGS bling was a $1 million pristine Charizard draped around his neck. Oh, he also fought Floyd Mayweather as well. So I'm not going to comment on the Floyd Mayweather, match. Apparently that was kind of rigged as well, but it was supposed to be an exhibition, and I couldn't kind of get if that's supposed to just be for fun. And there's this whole thing where Floyd looked like he was holding Logan up, but I'll leave that for maybe some boxing professionals to comment on, whether or not he got knocked out and held up or held back into the fight to make it go the full distance. I mean, going in, you had to kind of know it was just an entertainment thing regardless, and not a real match. So here we go. The thing with this, and the problem with this, is now Beckett is kind of claiming that they don't have anything to do with it. They cross-graded a card that didn't cross-grade before. Was that because it belongs to Logan? Probably, likely, very likely, I would say at least. And now they're quoting this 1 million that Logan was claiming. So you can't say 1 million. It's bad enough that Logan wanted to call it a 1 million for clickbait or whatever. Now Beckett is cross-grading something and calling it 1 million because Logan called it 1 million. The thing is, like, it hasn't sold for that price, and between Gary and Logan, they can make offers to each other that they probably won't even accept. But they can call it an $8 million card if they want. It's not really an $8 million card unless someone's actually going to pay it. So that's pretty much that. So you can dick wave 1 million back and forth when there's only 3 cards, I guess. And then claim that it's 1 million because you guys would like 1 million each other back and forth, like a 1,069,000. But I don't know. It's not a $1 million card. Get out of here. This was $150,000 when you just bought it from Gary. All right. So here we have a little Beckett article here where I guess the most important part of this is where they claim that they didn't know that he was going to bring it out. They knew that he had it. They didn't say anything about it. So here's their statement. To say this Charizard in this condition is rare is an understatement. Well, I mean, if you create the rarity by all of a sudden making it a 10, it's great. As there are just 3 total copies in the world. Yeah, well, there weren't really 3 copies until this one magically became a copy. The condition got better on it somehow. This particular copy has been hiding for months now, so when Logan wore it to the ring, it was somewhat of a shock to BGS. I have a hard time believing that they didn't know that was going to happen. Here they say, we knew he had it, we even knew he would eventually share it, but we did not know it would be like this. The total BGS pop report on this card is just 563 copies. Even a Gem Mint 9.5 is tough with only 49 copies in that grade. So estimating the value at 1 million isn't far-fetched at all, but that's a little pricey for ring gear. So where they say that the pop report is 563 copies, it's important to know that there isn't actually 536. Some would have been cross-graded to PSA. Some would have been cracked out to see if they could resubmit them and make them grade them at a higher grade, whether it was with BGS or PSA or CGC or in a binder or whatever. But also at the same time, like, you can't say it's 563 copies and make it sound like those are the only copies, because you also have to take into consideration that there's many and definitely way more copies with PSA than there are with BGS. The only real incentive that people had to grade with BGS is if you get up in that like higher echelon of ridiculous overpaying for those like subgrades where, obviously they don't really mean much. If it's different every time that you submit a card. So here we go. We got Pichu Collector. This is Pichu Fan on Instagram. Give him a follow. He did some awesome work on this. We have his little rundown here. Let's read through it real quick. Some of you may have seen the recent Logan Paul versus Mayweather fight. One of the main talking points of the Pokemon community wasn't the fight itself, rather the BGS 10 Pristine Charizard card Logan Paul was wearing around his neck. With a small amount of research, it became apparent that this card has a bit of history. History reveals that this card may be a bit less pristine than it appears. Thanks to Beckett sharing a high-res scan of the card on Twitter yesterday, we were able to compare the card with the PSA 10 copy Logan Paul purchased from Gary last year. From the hollow foil pattern and centering, it's without a doubt the same card. Logan purchased the PSA 10 card and crossed it over to a BGS 10 grade. That's where I imagine Logan and Beckett would like the story to end. However, if we go back to January 2020, the same card appeared in Leonhard video, which had Gary as a guest. In the video, Gary was trying to cross-grade some PSA 10 cards he had over to BGS 10 grades, with the caveat that it did not meet the minimum grade. It wouldn't be cracked out of their PSA 10 cases. One of the cards featured in the video was the Charizard card Gary later went on to sell to Logan Paul. Beckett returned the card in its PSA case after identifying issues with the top edge and the bottom and both of the top corners on the back of the card. It failed to cross over to a BGS 10 grade. Fast forward to October and those corner issues have now disappeared, and it's only the edge which prevents it from getting the coveted black label grade. It's one of only 3 BGS 10 first edition Charizard cards to have been graded, and Gary owns the other 2. Beckett is using this as a marketing piece. Logan is showing it off to the world, and Gary is publicly offering $750,000 to buy the card he sold to Logan for $150,000 9 months ago, despite it failing to cross over to BGS 10 further 9 months earlier. So that's the thing. Like, did Gary know at the time? I would assume that Logan would have been getting this advice from Gary the entire time, but I don't know how much they actually kept in touch and how much influence Gary had over telling Logan to bring it to BGS to cross grade it. It's really hard to say. I don't know. It's weird because you would think that the trail behind, if there was like something sketchy going on, the trail behind would be like so easy to trace back, because pretty well anyone knows in terms of if high end cards are stolen, even you can use the hollow foil pattern and any damage on the card to essentially trace it back and know that that was the stolen card. So to think that no one kind of thought about that is weird. So it's hard to say. Anyway, Pichu Collector on here. Give him a follow. And also Pichu Fan or Pichu Collector at Pichu Collector on Twitter. Shout out to him for putting a lot of this together. So here we go. We have another comment here. And another little piece of detective work. I've also seen this video, so it was cool to see it brought up and then to recall what happened. This is coming from OG Price Gouge, True Scalp Guru. Not from, I don't think I've met this individual yet. It seems like they're relatively new, but I thought this was pretty cool that they honed in on this other video that I've also watched. So he says, he or she, I guess, on the iced coffee hour, Gary already said that he's searching for the third copy and he'd pay $800,000. That was months ago. Who knows where he's at now? I also think it's weird Gary hasn't said anything about it yet. Well, it's not really weird because if he knows anything, and he just like the openings or the Logan buying all the first edition base set boxes, the people that are involved and know anything about it are asked to not say anything about it, because if everything's leaked beforehand, it's going to lose that wow factor of something coming out. And he says, check out the YouTube video titled Inside the World's Most Expensive $10 Million Pokemon Collection. In 50 minutes in, Gary takes out his BGS 10 first edition Charizard, talks about when he had the only copy, how he acquired his second copy, and how he would offer $750,000 for the third copy, plus $50K finder's fee. So, like, I don't know if he's just trying to be, like, discreet here and not let on that he knows where the third copy is, or, I don't know, or just, like, you can pretty much make up any number, and it's sort of fictitious if it's not selling for that much, or if at this point he didn't have any intention to actually buy the third copy because he knew where it was and just couldn't say anything about it, then it's just a lot of smoke and mirrors. At exactly 53 minutes, Gary talks about the certain numbers before and after the third BGS 10 that was graded, which leads him to believe it was from someone had a binder copy that they graded. So I think there was PSA 6s and stuff in there, which isn't going to be something that Logan's sending in, I can't imagine, where he's looking for the best of the best. I don't think he's sending in a BGS 6. So here is where it starts to get interesting, and we're going to have to follow up on this. So Gary, who's been very silent about it because there's probably some information that he knows that he doesn't want to release at this time. amongst whatever other information that is just private. Um, Here, Shizzle Me Timbers says that I'm pretty sure Gary has sent them in multiple times too. I'm not surprised though that the BGS we all know and love, as in surprised that BGS, or not being sarcastic, not surprised that BGS would all of a sudden give the 10 to Logan for publicity sake. And Gary said, nah, just the once to help Lee's channel. And then Shizzle has some old posts here by Gary that seem to indicate that he might have sent that one, especially that one, or sent 10s in the past. And one post that really leads me to believe that that same PSA 10 that Logan ended up in prior submissions for re-encapsulation and or to be crossed over, I guess is the better term, to be crossed over to a BGS since they're all in PSA cases. So here he says, in total I have submitted for crossover 100 PSA 10 first edition base hollows. So he's talking about previously submitting in many of them. Whether or not those are the same cards, it's hard to know. But if he was keeping the best versions all along, you would think that he would just keep sending the best ones in. So here, a post from way back in 2015 that he won't sell any of the cards out of his collection. And he says, I sent in 30 of my best first edition base PSA 10s and 0 crossover to a pristine. All were extremely strong PSA 10s. Very disappointed I did not get at least one. I was hoping for 2. Now you can all see how special my pristine Charizard is and well worth what I paid and much more. I may submit a few Charizards to BGS for 10 crossovers, but my hopes won't be very high. So this being long before the video with Leonhardt. And if we go back and look at the 5375 cert, and we zoom in, we use our special analysis 5375. This is the Logan Zard right here. Was it sent in before? I'm going to say probably. Does he recall, or is he just trying to hide information? I don't know. I think it's probably better if he just stays quiet. If there's anything that he asks to keep quiet about future videos, or something that's going to be revealed. Maybe there'll be a Logan video that comes out showing where he cracked the case and fooled BGS into grading it. Although if they know that he had the card, you would think that they'd have some sort of record that this same cert came in and where the card came from, even if Logan cracked it out of the case. At that point, $150,000 card, you're going to crack a case. It's pretty dangerous, but I mean, I guess if he had someone that's very experienced doing it. So here we go. And then here we have Gary saying that he recently sent in about 24 more PSA 10 first base hollows, just like our Blastoise, the Beckett's, and crossover only pristine. If I get even one to crossover, I'll be happy because the base set simply maxes out at 9.5, except my Charizard Winky Face. So when he says except my Charizard, it's when he only had the one copy and not the second, I guess. So here, and then another quote, just where he sent in his 20 absolute best PSA 10 first base hollows, ones that he cherry picked over the 17 years, and not a single one crossed over to a pristine grade. In English, not the Japanese were easier, I guess, to get the hands on. So it's hard to say. I would say that they probably got this Charizard, making it look even worse on BGS, and maybe certainly Gary and Logan don't want BGS to look bad, because if BGS looks bad, then so does their 10 grades. So it's hard to say. We'll see if some more comes out of this. I have a feeling that there's going to be some sort of follow-up video by Logan, and we'll see what the actual story is. But there's just there's a lot of lot of sketchy stuff going on here. Not all of it really adds up. And it's seeming a whole lot like some favors are being done. See you guys next time. If you have any information to add, let me know down below or reach out. Either on Instagram, Twitter, E4, Discord, whatever you got to do. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you probably for a follow-up on this, because it seems like there's some missing pieces. And it'd be cool to know more.